Hello friends, welcome to the first reading update of this vlog for Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters. As I mentioned in my intro, this will be spoiler filled and I am not exactly sure of the format of these vlogs. I am trying this out with this book because my hope is that once I get to the books that I haven't read, I can update my thoughts as I go and kind of bring you guys along the chaos that is Percy Jackson, because I have read the first 3 books countless times, probably more times that I have fingers to count on, but I've stopped after book 3. So book 4 and 5 are totally new to me. I've never read them as a child. I've never read them as an adult. So these first 3 reading vlogs or reading months are me getting back into the story that I already know. But starting from book 4, I'm gonna have a lot of thoughts and feelings, and I think it's gonna be really interesting to get those on video because I want to have that memory for me, but also to share with you guys who are participating in the read along and maybe have read these before. You'll be able to laugh at all of the reactions I have. I'm a very expressive person. I show a lot of what I'm thinking, so I think vlogging these will be really fun. All that to say that, and you can see my dog is here with me, the first 2 vlogs that I'm going to be doing for these, I might just be sitting in my library and kind of updating you as I go. They will be shorter, but in hopes that once we get to books 4 and 5 and move to Heroes of Olympus and all of that, I will have so much more to say, and I obviously want to share that with you guys, hence the read along. So my first update, and I'm sorry, I clicked on record and my neighbor decided it's the perfect time to start vacuuming. I feel like he knows when I talk. He just starts vacuuming. But alas, I made it over 100 pages. I am 107 pages in. This time I'm listening to this only via audiobook, and it's going to take me like a total of 3 hours total because I'm listening to it on like 2.5 speed. I love the audiobooks for these. So my thoughts so far, I'm going to start with the characters because I think I have a lot to say on them. First of all, Percy Jackson I love as much as I did in the first book. He is such a gem of a character, as is Annabeth. And what I think is like not sad about this book, but we don't get to see Grover as much because of his current situation and predicament that Percy and Annabeth are going to try to get him out of. So I kind of miss Grover, though we do see him interact lately with Percy Jackson through dreams. He's kind of showing him what is happening. And I just think that that trio is so fun to read about, and I'm not remembering right now if we see him back in book 3. I think we do, but I love the 3 of them so much. So I'm loving reading from Percy's perspective. I love that we get to see Annabeth so quickly in book 2. She's introduced in like the first few chapters, and the way that she's introduced I think is really witty, and she doesn't lose her spark, and the banter between them is so great. So I love those, and I do think that the introduction of Percy's half-brother is really interesting because it brings a lot of discussion about inequality and like labeling people and just like systematically giving stereotypes to people and like things. And I love that this is brought with his character. So obviously the way that he's introduced at first, we have no idea that he is this fellow, and we just think it's like Percy's unfortunate friend who's having a hard time, who's homeless and whatever. And very early on in the story we realize that he's a monster, but a monster that is also related to Percy Jackson because obviously they are half siblings, because Poseidon has also claimed our friend Tyson. And I love that Percy Jackson stands up for him, and I love the way that this friendship slash siblings are written, because as much as Percy stands up for Tyson, as much as Tyson is like willing to sacrifice his life for Percy, there's also this discussion on how, you know, Percy Jackson, when he's alone, he's like, well, he's not my brother, he's my half-brother, like trying to justify himself because everybody is mocking his half-brother and therefore kind of taking pity on Percy Jackson, and he's kind of trying to save his reputation of being like one of the chosen ones, but also having like a connection to Tyson and not necessarily wanting to like make him feel like he's bad or a monster. And I also think it's interesting to see people like Annabeth, who in the first book you see she's very kind-hearted, very open-minded, but she also has some like inherited stigma towards Tyson's kind in general, and so she calls him a monster, and she's like kind of disgusted by him. But obviously throughout the story we kind of get to see all of this change, and I think it's a really interesting way to talk about all of these like real world situations and hardships within a like mythical world. And that's one of the things I like most about the Percy Jackson books I've read so far. As for the plot, I think it's really well done. This is one of the shorter books. It's not even 300 pages. It is very fast paced, and from the beginning you're thrown into the action, which I really appreciate about this book. I think that there's no messing around. There's no like 60-page introduction out of a like 260-page book about like, this is what happened last summer and this is where we're at now and this is all. You're thrown into the action, and Rick Riordan kind of fills you in and kind of recaps what is happening and what has happened throughout the story itself. I will say sometimes it does feel a little info dumpy, but never enough to take me out of the story. One person who I think does this a little bit better than Rick Riordan is B.B. Austin with Amari and the Night Brothers. The third book does this remarkably well, but Rick Riordan is also up there in authors who provide recaps of his other books within these stories without it being too heavy or creating boredom. So I think that in itself is fun. I like where the story is going, and I love that it's not Percy's turn to have a quest, but he's going on a quest anyways. And even like the introduction of Hermes and how Hermes is trying to help Percy go against Luke to get that fleece. All of that plot line is really interesting. The fact that the tree is dying and the impact that this is having on Camp Half-Blood, and that Chiron is kind of out of a job, and all of that is so hard-hitting. It's so quickly introduced, but you don't ever miss a beat. And I think that's the remarkable thing about Percy, is that like you feel all the emotions and you have all these plot lines to navigate, but you're never lost or confused. You just kind of roll with the punches as he does. And I really like the plotline of this. I'm excited. I'm like now going on the quest with Percy. Like he's pretty much getting there, and I'm really excited for the rest of this. I remember like how it eventually unfolds, but there's some bits and pieces that I don't remember right now that I'm like excited to get back into so that I can remind myself what is happening. But those are my thoughts so far. Loving the pacing, the writing style is supreme, the characters are great, and the quest is gonna be a fun one. It's not my favorite out of what I've read, but I do enjoy it. I think it's kind of silly with Grover being like in a wedding dress and pretending to like be something else because, you know, of the whole situation. But yeah, so far so good. I'm probably gonna update you guys once or twice more, but those are my initial thoughts. And so far this definitely does feel like a 5-star book, so yay! It's time for my next update for Percy Jackson. I was listening to the audiobook this morning when I went out to help shovel snow and like clear off our cars and stuff, because the snow is insane. The accumulation I talk about in my Everbloom Academy vlogs, but oh my god you guys, it was insane. So I did make more progress and I wanted to chat about it. I made it to like chapter 13, so I'm more than halfway through this book now, and there are a lot of things that I'm like, oh, I forgot about this. I remembered this plot until the section where Clarice kind of picks them up and saves them from being killed, but I kind of forgot what happened afterwards, which obviously they are like the key moments. And so them having this whole thing with like the ship kind of exploding, and then Annabeth and Percy being separated from Tyson, and us not knowing if Tyson is like gonna reappear. We don't think he's dead, but like he could possibly have died, and so there's all this reflection of like, I wish I could tell Tyson that I'm grateful for him and all of the things he's done, and like reflecting when you lose someone. That was really interesting. I think the plot line when they meet Luke, I had like sort of remembered, but some of the parts of it I was like, and I still don't exactly remember how this ends, but I'm really loving the building blocks. This story is fast. It is very much faster paced than like the first book, and I feel like a lot happens in a short amount of time, but I'm having the time of my life still. I, from this point on, don't remember how this book ends, which is insane because I've read this book so many times, but it's gonna be all like new to me information. Not really, but like for the sake of me reading this, I could not predict the ending. I know they save Talia's tree. I know Grover doesn't die, but other than that, how do we get to that? I don't know, and that's the exciting part of it. I'm really excited to read the last like third of the book. So yeah, just a quick update that I'm still really loving it. I'm loving the plot line. The pacing is very quick but enjoyable, and I can't wait to see how this wraps up. I will be coming back obviously to let you know my last thoughts on this. So far, so good. Hello and welcome to the end, the last update for Percy Jackson 2. I finished this book, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago now. Concept of time very not happening right now. Obviously, this ended up being a 5-star. The last third of this was fantastic. As I did mention, I had forgotten some of the bits and pieces. I did kind of forget the ending on how they got to Grover and how they got Grover out, and the team effort, and the fact that Percy Jackson let Clarice go back to camp with the fleece so that she could satisfy her dad's demands, I think is something I forgot, but is so impactful. And the fact that like the quest was a team effort, but because of all the familial pressure, which Percy Jackson understands, she had to do that last bit alone. And all of the things with Luke, I think, are super interesting, and the character development was strong in the last of this. My favorite part is obviously the ending when Talia comes back to life from the tree, and because this whole book is kind of talking about the prophecy of Percy Jackson being like the kind of demigod that will decide the fate of Olympus when he turns 16, because he was the only child of the 3 gods. But that changes everything with Talia, and I'm really interested in seeing their dynamic further down. I do remember bits and pieces obviously of book 3, but I feel like there's gonna be so much. I'm sorry, Alexa decided it was time to talk to me. But yeah, there's just so much that could happen with this character's story, and the fact that like going from being the chosen one, even if you don't really want to not being the chosen one, and all of the effects of like sometimes when someone is taking something away from you, you want to be like, you want it, and just the dynamics and the relationships, because obviously Talia was there a lot prior to Percy, and like Talia's friends are now Percy's friends, and all of that. I cannot wait to see the character development and how that is going to impact the entire storyline. As I said time and time again, very excited for book 3, but even more excited to get into what is a new story to me. So those were my updates. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought of your read of Percy Jackson. I will be back with another vlog. As I mentioned, they will become increasingly interesting as time goes by. I promise. The first 3 books, we just got to get them out of the way, and then we'll be into full reactions, full spoilers, full me going into chaotic goblin mode, and I'm excited to share all of that with you guys. If you made it this far, leave me a water emoji, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye guys, happy reading.